I've heard of people that struggle to choose their next game, like really struggle. You see it on Reddit or YouTube, and generally I find it's because they have too many games to choose from. For me, I've never really been in that crowd. I've always loved to delve into my collection to find the next game. I suspect it's because over the last 10 years or so I've cultivated what I consider to be a fantastic collection of games. It might not be the biggest collection, but it is my collection. It's a collection that when I look through it, there's no filler. Every single one of the games is a game that I want to get to the console at some point. I've always just been good at knowing the types of games I like, and so they're the games I buy and the games that I play. Anything that doesn't fall in that setup doesn't get purchased. Now, that said, there are still games that are in my collection that I'd love to play, that I really want to get to the console, but which I hesitate on. So what's the deal with that? Here I am, sitting on this stool saying there's no filler in my collection, and yet I just told you that there's hesitation in playing some of these games. Double standards much? It doesn't sound like someone who would love to play those games, does it? Well, let me explain. But before I do, let's just get this out of the way right now. I really don't like roguelikes. I don't have many in my collection, and the few that I do have are typically what look to me to be the best of the bunch. So these are the ones that I've seen and I've scrutinized them a little bit, and I understand that there's certain features in them that I love and that appeal to me. And so there's a good chance, even though I don't like roguelikes, that I may want to play them. So, as a husband to a beautiful wife, a father to 3 beautiful children, and as someone who works 50 hours a week, I really need to look at my time closely. What I spend that time on really needs to have worth, and that worth really needs to be evident from the get-go. I just don't have time to spend on things that are not respecting my time. Roguelikes have always tended to look like time wasters to me, like you make some progress, you screw up, you die, hooray, you just found yourself back at the start where you were 3 hours ago. Well done, champ. And add to the mix that roguelikes are inherently pretty difficult games. And I just don't really like difficult games. I'm not afraid to say it. Difficult games just get me frustrated. So difficult games and time wasters are a big no-no for me. I'm probably a pretty average player in most games also. So you can understand my confusion then, at myself, mind you, when the next game I picked out of my collection was Returnal. So this was a game that I was always going to buy. The trailers leaked atmosphere and the sound and music just seemed so incredible and engaging. The story seemed dark and twisted and confusing, and those are things that I love in games, and so this was a getter. It had all the makings of a game that I'd love to play, but damn it, it was a roguelike. It had to be a roguelike, didn't it? It just had to be. Which, as I said, means the game's going to cheat a lot, and I'm going to waste a lot of time. So, did I survive Returnal? Did I manage to get through it, or did the frustration get the better of me to the point where I was basically wanting to play shot put with my controller? Well, controller in hand, I sat myself down in the shuttle, I strapped myself in, and yeah, I crash landed. That did not bode well for what the game had in store for me. I felt like I was failing before I'd even started the game. Oh boy. I started slow, testing the buttons and just kind of absorbing myself in the sound and everything around me, and I loved the opening. I loved it. It drew me straight in, and it had just enough mystery and intrigue to want me to really jump in further. And holy crap, something's shooting at me. Whew, remember though, it's me. I'm the king of these games. I'm so good at them. That's right. You take that. So naturally, I won. I won that engagement. Forward I went, and it wasn't too long until I started to find some pretty cryptic messages. I'd need to get more of these. I need to find more of these to really start piecing together exactly what was going on, because holy dooly, I was getting nothing from these first few ciphers that I had. Wait, I found my house on another planet. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty nuts, but I dig it. I was here for it. The story right now was definitely my biggest interest. As a plus though, I was actually kind of stomping through this first level, this first biome. You know, I'd clear rooms and think to myself, okay, that was easy. That guy died pretty fast. And then, yeah, I got absolutely deleted by the first boss. I was totally not expecting it. I felt like I was barely scratching it with my gun loadout, and so the budding confidence that I'd had that was growing very quickly evaporated on that first death. Yeah, it was pretty rough. I like to think that after my death, he was probably saying, okay, that was easy. That guy died super fast. I steeled myself, saying that I'd probably see 1 or 2 more of these deaths through just to see if I could unravel a little bit more of the story that was already so gripping. It helped that from death to crash landing again, that was super smooth. I really love the way they did that. It was genuinely cool to see and experience that the first time. It was so seamless. I was in for a few more deaths, but I could easily tell already that a few more deaths like that first one, in terms of how much I just got stomped, I was probably out. Second run though, I found a sword, which was pretty cool. The thing packed a punch, but I found I was getting into some pretty questionable situations as a result of it, trying to use it. It was fun though. So eventually on this second run, I got back to the boss. Was it my imagination, or was things a little bit easier this time? I don't think I played better, but maybe I did. But nope. Even after coming back to life somehow, which at the time had me shrugging, the run just wasn't meant to be. The Splitmore shotgun was definitely doing some damage though. Maybe the third go round I'd find a beefier version of it. Third time and back to the boss. The RNG guys did not play nice though. You know, I couldn't find the Splitmore that I wanted, but you know, this carbine was also doing pretty good, so I couldn't complain too much. I had a good chance here, but as you can see, with all these failed reloads and running into walls and all the bullets flying around, my skill level was definitely showing. I just wasn't good enough to get past it. I was in over my head. He knew it. I knew it. We both knew it. Back I went. Fourth run, right? I had a decision to make here. I'd spent up to this point maybe 5 hours for almost 0 return. I was really running high on the atmosphere and the speed of the game, but I knew I wanted more of that story. But man, if I couldn't beat this first biome, this first boss, that just completely blocks me getting to more story. So this was probably the last try. Let's be honest. This was the make it or break it run, and I went into this run knowing that I needed to be a little bit more deliberate, and just knowing that the RNG of the game could really stuff me up. It was a gamble, but back to the boss I got and decided I'd try this cool lightning thing. That's me trying to work out what button was use item again. Use item, not camera. Got there, yep, I got it. Okay, healed up. I felt like I was getting some of the attack patterns down this time. Like I knew what he was doing, and so I was able to somewhat prepare for it in advance. It paid off. I got the sucker, man. Honestly, there was a massive sigh of relief at this. Suddenly the now 6 to 7 hours I just pumped into this game started to seem a little bit more worth it. And with that hope of more story and atmosphere dangling, in front of me like a carrot on a stick, I gratefully followed the little yellow dot objective on my map until I found this cool looking gate. I'd seen it previously, but wasn't really sure of what its use was. This time though, it opened, and I was there for it, cautiously.
The only alternative. I'll need to explore the other side.
I stepped through. Gotta be cautious. I felt like this game couldn't wait to send me back to the start again. But nope. I arrived through the Stargate without issue, and the interior was super satisfying to look at. There was no Jack O'Neill here to help me out though. Second biome. Okay, this was cool. I was really digging the change of scenario. Going to the foresty area into this desert world was so different from the first biome, and I loved it. It was it was time to find this white shadow. All I had to do was climb this big mountain in front of me. So off I went, searching ruins and cheesing my way through a few fights. Did I feel bad about this? Nah, not really. I mean, after all, die here and I'm back to where I started. I'm back to the beginning of Biome 1. So cheese, let's do it. So pushing through more, I found some lasers, some more lasers, and even more lasers. I was on my way up, climbing this mountain, but I knew that I had faced little resistance thus far, and that my luck would run out. I had to find a new gun, but I was low on health and consumables, and me being not good at difficult games, I really did start to feel like if I ran into another challenging fight coming up, I'd be in trouble. And I did start to run into a few more challenging fights, but I kept my distance, and honestly, this new Hollow Seeker weapon that I picked up along the way was actually pretty freaking awesome. The damage its alt fire could dish out was a pleasant surprise, and I felt like it was somewhat carrying me a little bit. Slowly though, I started taking more and more damage, the chips slowly eating away at me, each small little hit, you know, starting to eat away at my confidence, the unfamiliarity of the enemies and their abilities taking its toll. And so when I came upon the second boss, having made it all the way without dying so far, I was actually pretty surprised, but also pretty worried at the same time. You know, jumping off ledges was the last thing I needed to do right now. I didn't know what to expect, so it felt like I was taking damage every which way. I was running on fumes, the shuttle was getting closer in my eyes, but I was kind of pulling off some good dodges. Did I have it in me here? Final phase! I was so close to death, and I had no health consumables. I just needed to get this full bar down. Wait, I had a consumable. I don't even know what that is. Clearly, I completely forgot about it in the heat of the moment. Damn it, man! Work out those reloads! The pressure of defeat had me pressing all kinds of buttons, and all of the failed reloads were so frustrating, locking me out of perfect damage opportunities. You know, this was the sort of game you needed to take advantage of opportunities, and I was squandering them big time by messing up these reloads. But man, look at that laser damage though. The alt fire was carrying me big time here. I've got this. Nope, I don't. Shuttle time. Wait. I'm back. I'm back. Okay, focus up. Make some space. Keep your finger on that trigger. Oh, these reloads, man. Man, I did it. The euphoria from this win was crazy. I just pulled off Biome 2 without a single death. I defeated the boss first time, without knowing the attack patterns, without knowing anything about it. Man, it was touch and go for a lot of it. But this astronaut had totally came in clutch. I actually had forgotten I had this thing. Oh, man, talk about clutch. Honestly, this whole moment was super memorable. Some of these dodges when I was super low and I was expecting to die was exhilarating. I felt like I played my best when I needed to, and yeah, totally worth it. I'd just done the second biome first try. I'd gotten more story fix and I'd gotten it without having to repeat anything. Just, look, it's moments like these which is why we game. Those memorable moments that exist well beyond the credits of a screen. These are the moments that you remember after a game has been completed. I felt like I just had one of those moments. Alright, so following those little yellow objective dots again, and it was Stargate time. Third biome, you ain't got nothing on me. Did you just see what happened to the last guy that messed with me? That's what's going to happen to you. The third biome, again, it felt very different. I found this cool little grapple thing, which immediately opened up traversal in a pretty interesting way. And the tidbits of story that I was getting along the way were awesome. Let me just quickly say this. The voice actor for Selene, Jane Perry, if somehow you ever hear this, just know that you did an amazing job in this game. You were one of the main reasons for me hanging around through this whole experience. really your voice acting, and not a single line, not a single one felt out of place. And I feel like that's super rare in a lot of games. Every line that you delivered was on point, it kept me engaged, and it was so good. So pushing into Biome 3, what awaited me? Well, more lasers, more sticking my arm into things that I probably shouldn't be sticking them into, some cool enemy fights and some cool story beats, and then somehow I found myself on the third boss. I had not died since my multiple deaths in Biome 1. I was on a roll. Could I actually pull this off and get past the third boss without dying? Not knowing what was going on at the start of this fight was pretty nerve-wracking. It was very, very different to any boss so far, or mini-boss so far. The new grappling device came in super handy. The one thing I got from this fight very quickly was that if I just kept moving, just kept using that grapple, I'd somehow be safe, and so I did. I just grappled every time I could. It didn't always work out. I was constantly under pressure of wondering how far I could freefall before the game would just kill me outright, but I always seemed to luck into great grapples, and I just kept being able to move higher and higher. I took some damage for sure, but I had what felt like great damage output myself. But man, this ult fire choice could have been way better. Some of these were just Hail Marys, but oddly, some of these actually made the mark, which I was super stoked for as the fight wore on. Phase 1, Phase 2, they went pretty quickly. And before I knew it, I was looking down on Phase 3 and I felt like I was in pretty good shape. The pressure was mounting though. One mess up or failure to find a grapple, I could be back in Biome 1 dealing with that first boss that haunted me early on. My intensity never wavered though. With some incredible random ult fires, somehow finding their mark, I gradually fought my way into a great position. As his health got lower and lower, I found myself standing ground a bit, focusing too much on damage and not survival, and it didn't rule me though in the end. My trusty Astronaut that I acquired on the way to the boss room came in clutch per normal, and just like that, this third boss had met an end that I dare say he had not expected to face at my hands. I remember thinking at the time, had I just gotten lucky here? I'd somehow had an Astronaut for both boss 2 and boss 3. I'd found some great defensive pieces, which I think actually won me that third fight. My weapon required little to no accuracy. Had I gotten lucky? I'm waking up again. Did I just crash land? What the heck is going on here? Why am I back here?
No, I can't be here. I escaped.
The twisted nature of it was absorbing. I loved this stuff, and I was on a high of just taking down 2 bosses in short order. It hadn't been easy, but it had been done. This biome kicked off with some cool story pieces. And when I came upon my house again, I was stoked to be able to enter it, as I knew I'd be rewarded with more story. That's what I was here for. It was creepy, and honestly, it wasn't making much sense still. But again, I was there for every second of it. I left the house and started falling into a pattern I'd begun back in Biome 3. I found that I could leave chests until the end of a biome, and I'd have a better chance at getting better ranked weapons. If I just left them and then came back at the end, I'd get better weapons. So I did that, while still finding new weapons from enemies in the meantime. Occasionally I'd encounter what I'd like to assume was not my future waiting for me. It was ominous enough to make me take each room slowly and methodically. Eventually I made my way through the biome into the tower. This was actually very cool, and it seemed like the higher I went up the tower, the more the music cranked up. I loved that, and it was something the game had not yet done. It stirred me to push up and up, even knowing that I was probably just getting closer to my own death at this point. I've just finished 2 bosses in short order without dying in a game that I know is known to be difficult, and in a game where I know if I mess up, I'm back to the start, and the chances of me messing up in a roguelike pretty high. I don't like these games, and I'm not good at them, but here I was, heading towards the 4th boss. And yep, Mr. Tunes was there, and I don't think he liked that I was intruding on his private time. I don't have a video of this, but yeah, he ended up taking out the trash on this one, and I was definitely the trash. My heart was pounding on that death. It was a tough one to swallow. Much to my surprise though, I woke in the same biome. It didn't take me back to the first. And oh man, I'm truly grateful for that, because despite the level of enjoyment I was getting in this game, I knew I wouldn't have wanted to do those first 3 biomes again, just to try my hand at Mr. Piano again. If I had to do that, I wouldn't have played this game again from here. That would have been it. So I love that I woke up here in, 4th biome again. I gradually made my way back through the biome, killing some pretty hectic mini-bosses along the way. And I wanted to shout out this guy here who exploded into a beautiful field of green. This time I knew a few of the early phase abilities, so I made it through that pretty well. Even phase 2 wasn't too crazy. Stage 3 though, man, this was insane. There was so much going on here. This was him at his best, and this was probably me at my best. My skills had certainly improved a lot since my early days in Biome 1. I found myself almost tranced to the music on this boss. It was so good, shooting and reloading and dodging, all of this to the beat of this crazy tune that was going on in the background. The tension was peaking, but I felt like I was making fight-winning plays by the second. Abilities I hadn't seen before, and I was dodging them, It was exhilarating, and even my wife and 3 children came in watching this one. So now I had to perform, right? I can't let my kids see me die to this douche a second time, I can't let him get the better of me. Flying bullet hell or not. Using my last consumables, it started coming down to the wire. It was do or die time, and I probably looked like an absolute maniac to my children with the intensity that I had on display here for this fight. And I'd done it! I reveled in the win. The cheers coming from my younger kids of 8 and twins of 5 were worth every second of that pressure cooker. I got Cuddles. And then as they left the room, they were laughing that daddy was, a bit of a sweaty mess. Coming into Biome 5 was pretty cool. Another change of scenery, an ice biome. This would be slick. Get it? I started off super cautious here. After all, dying here would send me back to the previous level, and oh man, I didn't want to do that all over again. So it was baby steps all the way through. I got some much needed story. I was beginning to form a much better idea around what was actually going on here. I very much liked the vibe of where this was going. Some of the symbology on display was really thought-provoking to the overall narrative, and I loved it. Frustratingly though, the enemies were starting to get the better of me. I died here losing an Ashnor, which I'd picked up very early on after having just bought it. Some of the damage here was staggering, taking 2 or 3 hits and you were in the yellow. After losing that astronaut, I kind of knew that this was probably going to be a failed run. It was disappointing, but I still enjoyed this whole thing immensely. And I knew I'd be back here if I did die, and it wasn't long before that happened. I totally did not see this guy come through and get me from behind. I tried, but it wasn't meant to be. Spawning back at Biome 4 to be completely open, I was a little frustrated that last death. I don't know what this pillar did to deserve this, but it got it anyway. It was either this or I'd shot put my controller. I think it was because I lost the Astronaut from a death and then immediately followed that straight up with another death. 2 deaths in a row within quick succession like that. Oh man, it really irked me. It was super frustrating. Back I went through the Fractured Ways, but I did get some more really cool story bits on Return to the House. So, that death had been a boon in a way because I loved these injections of story. I loved every second of it. They were so... I skipped the boss this time on the 4th biome. Once you defeat them once, it seems you can skip them. So I did that. I just went straight to Biome 5 once I was ready. I still looked around and cleared the level. I decided very early on that I was going to cheese my way through Biome 5 as much as I could, and I just take it super slowly. It felt like the enemies and traps were on another level here though, so I needed to adapt. I couldn't go in guns a-blazing and hope to not take damage. These enemies were too good for that. I'd take hits and their damage was massive. So I used my old friend the door to eliminate what I could before entering a room in full. But man, did this biome have some surprises in store for me along the way. Some of these mini-bosses were no joke, but their rewards were no joke either. I picked up some high damaging weapons and suit bonuses along the way, but what I wasn't ready for? The final key that I needed was in a lockdown room. Come on, why? Who did this? I entered begrudgingly, anticipating a death, honestly. It was a good fight. To my utter surprise though, I came out on top, and it actually wasn't too crazy considering the enemies that I took down inside it. I was just zipping around using my little grapple thing, and I didn't know this until this room actually, but it seems like I can't take damage when I grapple, so the more I grapple around and the crazier I get with it, the less chance that I'm actually taking damage, so I was grappling everywhere. I grabbed that final key, I punched open the final door and went in, but it wasn't a boss. It was an upgrade to allow me to delve into water. That was pretty cool. Taking a leap of faith that I really didn't want to do, I landed in what I assumed at this point was Biome 6. The Abyssal Scar. That doesn't sound very fun. I took things slowly here, eventually I found a gun with Leech level 2, which felt super OP. The gun was also extremely strong to go with that, and the combination of, Leech and its damage just really pushed me through this biome one baby step at a time. I dealt with the locals, the small ones, bigger ones, and even bigger ones. I came upon traps as well, areas that also seemingly out of reach. I didn't know how I was going to get to some of these places, but I had a feeling the game would show me the way later on, so maybe perhaps with a double jump. That was actually going to be pretty cool if I got a double jump. I delved deeper, but some of the fights along the way were just brutal. I felt like I was brutal all the same, but man, some of these enemies were just crazy. We played a dance of death each time, and I was always the better dancer. That wouldn't be like that in real life, but here in this game I was doing pretty good despite my original misgivings about my skill level and about my types of these games. Eventually I got what I was seeking. It wasn't a double jump though, but it was a way to reveal hidden things. That was pretty cool, and I kind of preferred this to a double jump actually. First I needed to deal with this shadow, this white shadow. This boss was awaiting me. I felt like I was so close to the end here. As I stood upon the final precipice, looking down into the void, I couldn't help but think about how screwed I was about to be. This was the final boss of Returnal. Die here, and I'd lose progress again. I'd be, back to making snow fairies on Biome 5. I leapt, or at least I thought I did. Thanks, game. I hesitated again, and finally I did go down. But I was met with a door, and then another drop. A drop that was calling to me. I couldn't escape just the look of this, the spinal look of this was really cool. I knew this was it though. So I dropped and was immediately thrust into a boss I knew nothing about. I quickly realized that the blue orbs to the side would reveal lesions on the boss that I could do damage to. I couldn't just do damage to the boss anywhere. It had to be these little lesions. My gun was smashing through his health so quickly though. It was a bit of a shock when phase 1 ended as easily as it did. But I knew things would pick up. Phase 2 though, my damage seemed insanely strong. And again, phase 2 ended about the same as phase 1. I was in a great place going into phase 3 and I knew it. I had a leeching gun, health consumables, I had an astronaut. Unless there was some crazy BS ahead of me on phase 3, I was probably going to take this thing down on first try. I was pumped. And so it was. Ophion was defeated. It was a weird feeling. This was a game that I fully expected to fail at. I eagerly moved ahead, seeking the conclusion of Celine's story. I'm not going to ruin anything here, right? I wasn't disappointed by this ending. It was a great ending, really was, and I do remember though leaving that final scene a little confused about some of the names that were thrown around. I felt like maybe just because of the couple of days I had off, or, I basically finished this game over a 3-week period. I felt like, maybe the names I'd gotten mixed up along the way, but, I put the controller down, I walked off, those credits rolled, and that was great, man. It was really good, but there's something to be said about good games, like really good games. They're the ones that after you finish them, you want to come back. You want to come back. And so a day later, I kept thinking about how mucked up my memory of the names was exactly. So I went onto Reddit and wow, some of the story that I was reading didn't even come into my game at all. It was a complete mind blow. I mean, I'd gone through the game in full and had reached a conclusion that I was 100% satisfied with. 100%. I had slight confusions on names, but I absolutely loved and was satisfied with that ending. And now to learn that what I knew to be the ending wasn't true and there was a whole nother layer on top of this. And I don't have much in the way of video of this, unfortunately, but look, I was excited to delve back in, so I did. And, I had a quick read online beforehand about what was involved in getting these additional story elements. Did I have to go through the whole game again? Because if I did, I was probably not going to do it. Short answer though, kind of. That thought soured me a little bit. I loved my experience with the game, but I was also fully satisfied to see that it was over. And after a few days, I did pick up the controller again. I went back to Biome 1, and after getting through the whole level, I never found what I was looking for. I found some pretty cool and unique rooms that, my new abilities, like the ability to see things, got me to. What I was looking for was not there, and I looked online and found out that sometimes, even though you've done all the right prerequisites to be able to get them, they just don't spawn sometimes. It was frustrating, and look, I gave up at that point. My time was too precious. I also didn't want to spoil the memory of the game. I'd had an amazing experience up until that point, and a repetitive grind in a roguelike, that just did not seem like something I wanted to put my time into. I dropped it, and I haven't yet, but I probably will just watch that final ending on YouTube. So what did I learn here? At the end of the day, what did I learn here? I came into this with a mixture of trepidation. I felt like I wasn't good at these difficult type games, and I just don't like roguelikes. I don't feel like my time gets respected with them. And there was a couple of times where I thought, hey, I'm just going to have to put this controller down and walk off from it, and that would be it. I didn't suck at this game. I felt like I kind of excelled at it in quite a few ways. My dodging was on point in many locations. I felt like I played great at certain life-changing moments in the game. It's a profound thing to know that I could have easily skipped this game. Had I followed my head and not played a genre of game that I didn't think I would enjoy, I would have missed this. Sometimes you need to listen to your heart though. You need to listen to the passion that you have as a gamer to really embrace that passion and take a chance on a game. It's not always going to work out as it did for me here, I know that. But I also wouldn't have played this great game had it not been for me listening to my heart as a gamer instead of my head as a time specialist. We play games to love them and have fun with them. We play games to get experiences that we might otherwise not get. We play them to share the good times, to get those cuddles from our children when we succeed, and this is why we play games. I played Returnal. I beat Returnal. I had a really fun time doing it. That's it for me, everyone. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. This is a new channel and I'm really hoping to get off the ground here, so pre-thanks to you guys if you do. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching this. This was fun. This was really fun. Take care, everybody. Chat soon.